Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English. In our today's video, we'll cover a possible deal that the central government is planning to sign between itself and Kuki-Zo and Hmar community of the state of Manipur. What are the salient features of this agreement? Why this agreement has been signed? Everything we'll cover in our today's video. In case if you want to download the notes which I will be using in our today's session because it deals with many important aspects of Indian Constitution, you can go to a particular Telegram channel called as ATS Live, and while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel also. Okay, so let us start by understanding why are we discussing this particular kind of a peace deal. As you can understand, recently a BJP-led government has taken office in the state of Manipur, which is led by a Methi leader, Singh. Now, in this government, the BJP has ensured a symbolic representations of MLA from Kuki as well as Naga community, so much so that a deputy CM has been named among the Kuki MLAs and similar with the Naga MLAs. So this shows that the union government is trying to ensure a wide consensus among the different warring communities in the state of Manipur, which has been under ethnic conflict since 2023. Now, the participation of Kuki MLA in this government, it only happened after the government, that is the union government, gave them an assurance that they are going to sign a peace deal with them, which will give them structured autonomy much more than what was before. And the center, it appears to be sequencing a peace deal which has only been able to sign after the next elections that is going to happen in the year 2027. Because for that, any peace deal to be signed between the union, state as well as the communities of Kuki and Zo, the government also needs permission of the other communities like Methi. So in order to get their permission, in order to get their approval, in order to get their consensus, the government is biding some of the time, right? Now let us understand what is the idea or the model on which this particular peace deal is about to be signed. Now, if you can recall our previous discussions, 2 weeks before, the union government signed a tripartite agreement between union government, Nagaland government and Eastern Nagaland People's Organization, which provides Eastern districts of Nagaland, 6 districts, Eastern districts of Nagaland, enhanced autonomy. Right now, this was created within the framework of special constitution provisions that is given to Nagaland under Article 371A of the Indian Constitution. At the same time, the union government also avoided giving full statehood and union territory demand to these tribes which were located in eastern part of the Nagaland, and on the other hand, it offered them administrative autonomy. It gave them dedicated financial allocations with proportion to their population and the area of these 6 districts, and they will also have a greater say in developmental priorities, which is very essential in a development deficit region of eastern Nagaland. So this is the model on which the government is also looking to sign a deal with communities in Manipur. Now let us understand what are the main differences in the special status that is provided to Nagaland under Article 371A compared to the special status given to Manipur under Article 371C of the Indian Constitution. Now, in Article 371A of the Indian Constitution, which deals with special provisions to the state of Nagaland, it provides for autonomous district councils, which are basically autonomous self-governing units. What you need to understand, the institutional design provided in Article 371A through autonomous district council gives very high degree of autonomy to these developmental councils in the state of Nagaland. For example, Article 371A, it protects customary laws of Naga, it protects their socio-religious practices, and it also ensures protection to their land and resources. That is why these developmental councils, these communities have a strong constitutional veto over any parliamentary law that is passed dealing with Nagaland's customary law, socio-religious practices, land and resources. Without the explicit permission of the State Legislative Assembly of Nagaland, no parliamentary law would extend to the areas located in Nagaland which are covered under Article 371A of the Constitution. Now let us talk about the Article 371C of the Constitution, which deals with state of Manipur. Now this article provides for an administrative oversight over tribal regions of Manipur through what is called as Hill Area Committees. Now Hill Area Committees consist of elected MLAs from those particular districts which are under Article 371C of the Constitution. And this particularly provides for an administrative oversight. So in terms of comparison of the degree of autonomy offered under Article 371A and Article 371C, the degree of autonomy offered is high in Article 371A as compared to Article 371C. Why am I saying the degree of autonomy is high? Because under Article 371C, the Hill Areas Committee, they do not have any such veto over a parliamentary law passed relating to the aspects of Manipur, which was not the case with respect to Nagaland. Similarly, there is the framework that is implemented here at autonomous district councils. These are basically weakly implemented as compared to that of Nagaland. I told you the robust protections, the robust autonomy offered to Nagaland origins from the constitution itself. On the other hand, as far as Manipur is concerned, these autonomous district councils, they get powers which are devolved to it by the state legislative assembly of Manipur, and this is where the problem actually begins. Let us deal with the issue a bit in detail. Now, the autonomous district council, I told you, which are formed in Manipur under Article 371C, they have largely remained recommendatory nature. Why? First of all, the power which these committees get over developmental resources like agriculture, fisheries, social welfare, etc. These needs to be devolved by the state legislative assembly of Manipur. When state legislative assembly of Manipur, it is controlled by majority communities like Methi. Obviously, the autonomous district councils, which are located in hilly regions, catering specifically to Kuki-Zo communities, the powers to them have not been meaningfully devolved. So this is one big problem, that they can get the powers, but they are not getting the powers because the state legislative assembly of Manipur does not want it to. Why? Because they are controlled by a majority community antithetical to the interest of hilly tribes. Second is the budgetary allocation. To deal with any administrative issue, you need to have your independence in budget, which was not the case in Nagaland. But now the budgetary allocations that are made to these autonomous district councils are done by the government of Manipur. So when these budgetary allocations are inadequate, they have really struggled to deal with the issues that they were originally meant to form. For example, they have even reportedly struggled to pay salaries to their employees. This is the state of autonomous district councils. So what you can understand from these practical examples, that the institutional autonomy that have been granted to these autonomous district councils under Article 371C of the Indian Constitution, they have existed only on paper. But when it comes to dealing with powers, when it comes to having finances to discharge powers, the legislative and fiscal reality is far from the truth. It's far from the ideal. So this is the biggest problem that has plagued the state of Manipur, and that is why the hill communities like Kuki, like Zo, like Hmar, they have been demanding a separate administrative structure in the state of Nagaland, most probably with the status of union territory. And the union government does not want to fragment the state of Manipur. So that is why they are undergoing negotiations with various armed groups called as suspension of operation groups. Now, in this negotiation, some of the demands from these armed groups have come, and the union government is considering it. For example, the union government is considering for a greater financial devolution, which will be in proportion to the population and terrain-based formula, just like with the ones they have signed with eastern districts of Nagaland. Similarly, they will also expand the administrative control over the developmental departments. I told you before, the powers of these developmental departments needs to be dissolved by the state legislative assembly of Manipur. If this is to be done directly through the provisions of the constitution, the purpose of devolution won't come in future. Similarly, when it comes to jurisdiction of land regulation, jurisdiction of socio-economic issues, which was one of the biggest problems facing in the state of Manipur, especially with relation to hill tribes, the government is looking to give them direct jurisdiction over land and resources. As far as legislative powers is concerned, they will also look to give legislative powers which deal with customary law, so that no act of parliament changes it without the permission of the state legislature. Similarly, the self-governance that the hilly tribes have been demanding, they will be provided within the ambit of Manipur Assembly, so that the fragmentation and the balkanization of the state of Manipur doesn't happen. So what did we understand from these negotiations? From these negotiations, we understand that in order to pass this peace deal through, the central government needs consensus even from other communities like Metis. And Metis communities, they also have their own set of apprehensions. For example, Metis think that if the government is going to bring certain kind of administrative autonomy for hill tribes, it will create what is known as territorial fragmentation in the state of Manipur. Same, when it comes to resource distribution, the resource are distributed generally by an elected assembly of the state of Manipur. If the resource distribution happens administratively, that will also bring concerns over the control of legislative assembly, and it might create precedents in the future that the other communities, just like Kuki-Zo, might also demand from same kind of concessions from the union government. So it will create a kind of a domino effect in the eyes of Metis communities if you were to accept the demands made from Kuki-Zo communities. Now let us talk about what are the expectations from the hill communities. Hill communities, they want genuine fiscal empowerment. They want legal protections over their land and resources, and they want a kind of an administrative insulation from the Imphal-based control, which indirectly means controls of the Metis over the government and the state legislative assembly of Manipur. So these are the two sets of concerns that the government needs to consider. Both of them have their true sets of concerns, and in order to get a peace deal through, you want the reconciliation to happen between these two rival factions that we have seen appeared in the polity of Manipur from 2023. Now, this also brings certain strategic implications, not just from the perspective of Manipur, but from the wider perspective of the Northeast region. First of all, this is an experiment how you tilt or how you modify your federal design in order to suit the needs and aspirations of different communities. For example, there can be a possible amendment to the constitution under Article 371C, or there might be an insertion of a new constitutional chapter also, which might need constitutional amendment from the parliament. And if this is pushed through, it might deepen the asymmetric federalism that already exists in Northeast. As you can understand, the federalism in India is not symmetric. Many states, including states of Northeast, are provided special provisions under Article 371 of the Constitution. Now, if you were to agree to these demands from Kuki-Zo community, this might create precedents in the future where similar demands of autonomy might emerge from other communities in the Northeast, and this invariably would affect the peace and tranquility in the region. But on the other hand, there is a very important security angle to it. What is happening in the state of Manipur? Since 2023, there has been an ethnic-based violence. And the core priority of the union government is to control this ethnic-based violence. So if you bring these armed suspension of operation groups under the ambit of a peace deal, it will reduce the insurgency risk, not just in Manipur, but in the entire state of, or in the entire region of Northeast. And to deal with electoral timing, what if this peace deal is passed right now? This will create problems when the election is going to happen in the Manipur in the next year in 2027. So government would want to manage the political risk by bringing in the consensus of Metis communities and ensuring the needs of Kuki-Zos are also taken care of. Right. Now, what is the larger constitutional question? The larger constitutional question that we have to deal with right now is India's asymmetric federalism, because India's asymmetric federalism allows a kind of differentiated autonomy to be given to a particular region of India, which we have seen exist in Nagaland, which we have seen exist in Manipur and other northeastern part of the country. But the durability of such provisions under asymmetric constitutionalism would only be true, or if would be durable only if you provide them real fiscal devolution. What about the fiscal devolution which needs to be devolved from the state legislative assembly? If that were not to be materialized, the problems or concerns won't be addressed. Similarly, you need to give these autonomous district councils a kind of legislative competence, so that when they are dealing with matters relating to land, resources, social religious practices, they should have a certain kind of veto. And we also need political consensus between hill and valley based communities, like I've already told you. And without these meaningful concessions, there is a risk of repeating the same kind of a mistake that we did with Manipur before with the autonomous district council experiment, because autonomous district councils, although they were established, but they were without any fiscal or real fiscal devolution. They were without any substantial legislative control, and that is why the problem emerged into a way that they were demanding a separate administration, be it a separate state or a separate designation of a union territory. So we need to understand all the concerns and we need to address them by accepting the needs of the communities. Understood? Now, there is a question that have been asked on UPSC exactly on the lines that we covered right now. But before that, there is an important announcement. We are right now in the middle of February, and before the end of the February, a new batch is going to start for UPSC, which will be provided exclusively in English language. So students who are watching from Northeast, you do not have to worry about any Hindi or a bilingual batch. We are providing you batch separately in English so that you can get your UPSC aspirations underway. You can realize your aspirations and convert them into reality. To do that, you can take admissions in resolution batches where every important subject of UPSC, polity, economy, history, geography, IR, security, etc. would be covered. You will also be getting recorded lectures in case if you miss out on live lectures. You'd have access to one-to-one mentorship so that each and every doubts will be solved and no doubts would keep festering, which would create problems for you when you give the exams, right? And there are separate batches for the year 27 as well as 2028. So students who are looking to prepare in these years, decide accordingly. Do not delay taking the admission. If you take admissions right now and if you use the code ATS Live, you're going to get maximum discounts, right? Now, this is the question that I was talking about. This question appeared in 2015 examination. The provisions of 5th and 6th schedule of the Constitution are made in order to do what? Please do let me know the correct answers in the comment section. And the ones who will answer it correctly would get a thumbs up from my side. And if you are from the Northeast, specifically from Manipur, if you're watching this video, what are your opinions on the kind of ethnic tension that the state of Manipur is witnessing? Please do let me know. You need to understand the priority of entire India is to help solve the problems that are being faced by the communities in Manipur, and so that Manipur goes back to normal, the peace and tranquility in the region is restored at the earliest, right? And the notes which you are waiting to download, you can go to this particular Telegram channel called as ATS Live and download the notes there. So this is all from my side for today. Please have a very good day and we'll see each other again quite soon.